Welcome to P English Literature, a YouTube channel that conveys Amazon, Goodreads, blog, and video book reviews coupled with interviews with authors. It's a perfect channel for book lovers, authors, and writers generally. P English Literature, the exact channel for you and me. Hi there, viewers. Today I'm joining in conversation with Allison K. Dagney, the author of When Tears Leave Scars, a true life story of triumph over emotional abuse. Allison K. Dagney wrote this book in respect to our personal life experience dealing with a narcissist husband. It's really a pleasure to have Allison on the show, though Allison won't be showing her face for some obvious reasons, and it's a pleasure to really have her on the show. Hi there, Allison.
Hi there, Peter. Thank you so much for having me. And yes, I won't show my face because I need to maintain privacy and anonymity because I have young children. So that's the purpose for that. But thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I'm really excited also to have you feature on English literature because I so much enjoyed your book, and I'm very, very excited to speak with you and ask you some questions relating to the book so the readers and viewers can have a glimpse of what the book is really all about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, considering your autobiography book, When Tears Leave Scars, I want to specifically ask you, what is it like to live with a narcissist husband? What is it like to, live with a narcissist?
Well, in my specific situation, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I am a person who lived with someone who I believe displays high narcissistic traits on the covert narcissistic category. And basically what that means is when you're a covert, you are extremely hard to detect. And living with someone like this really felt like I was the problem. I felt like that for my entire marriage that I wasn't good enough, that I couldn't do anything right. I felt anxious, frustrated, depressed, fearful. I felt like a prisoner in my own home, but I didn't know why. And that's the hard part about, living with a covert narcissist, because they make you believe that you're the problem for everything.
Oh, that's quite intriguing. Also in your book, you wrote about how deceptive your narcissist husband was and how he would behave like a saint outside home or while you guys are in church. And whenever they come home, he would behave like a demon. You wrote about his heartlessness and wickedness, and that you sometimes wished that he died.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you, how do you see yourself coping at this time? What are the things that inspired you to persevere and endure his brutality for over 18 years?
Well, to answer your first question, I actually don't see myself as coping anymore. I see myself as thriving beyond the abuse. In the beginning stages, I was coping. I was, literally trying to make my way through what this was. I mean, I was just learning about what narcissism was. I was learning about emotional abuse, and I didn't know what these things really were or how evil and deceptive that it was. So I used to cope. Now I feel like I'm through the healing process and I'm doing a really good job healing. And, part of that is, I don't know, doing things like going to therapy regularly, doing self-care types of things. And those are all kind of coping mechanisms. Now, because I'm, so much further down through the healing process, I feel like I'm doing more thriving and more living beyond the abuse. And, part of when you're in a narcissistically abusive relationship, at least for me, was I was a people pleaser. I was trying to always, and even as a child, I was like that. I was always trying to be better. I was always trying to do more. I was always, felt responsible to try to fix myself and fix other people and, make things better. And I realized, after, going through this experience that was just, a trauma response to all of the things that I had endured. So really, I don't feel like it's coping anymore, but I understand, and through therapy, I've been able to distinguish what made me do the things that I did while being in a relationship with a person like this. And to answer your second question, what are the things that inspired me to persevere? I was in a relationship, a marriage with this person for over 18 years. And once I discovered, and you know this because you read my book, but once I discovered what was going on and what he was doing to me on purpose for his own selfish needs, I realized that I couldn't possibly be the only one. I couldn't possibly be the only person in the world who's dealt with something like this. And for number one, my kids, because I have 3 children, and I was like, I cannot give up at this point. Those were the number one. Fellow victims, other people who are victims, and survivors of this type of thing, because there's a lot of people out there in the world who experience this type of abuse and have really no idea that they're being abused. And that was me. So I thought, you know what? I can't give up here. I have to keep going. I have to persevere, and I have to continue to heal along this process.
Wow. Wow. I must say that you're very, very strong. And because when I read through most of your experience in the book, I was like, why is she staying? Why does she have to stay to endure this, gruesome stuff? I was like, when I was reading your book, the first thing that came to my mind about your personality was that you were too gentle. I was like, she's too gentle. I won't take that. That's gentleness. And I can really feel that, your reason behind the endurance of his brutality is very, very, very crucial and very important. That's quite inspiring. When I read your book also, I see that this book is vast into marriage issues, and it contains some crucial information that some intending couples would find so important when it comes to who they are going to marry. I want to specifically ask you over a particular sentence in page 39, where you wrote that, I was too naive to know that when you fall in love with someone's potential, you are setting yourself up for a failure. I read that again. I was too naive to know that when you fall in love with someone's potential, you are setting yourself up for a failure. I find this sentence so profound that I underlined it and would love it if you would, if you could expound more on this particular sentence.
Sure. That was something that, as I was writing the book, that came to my realization. And what I felt like at that point was that I held on to a maybe. I held on to a maybe he's going to be nicer. Maybe he will change. Maybe he will treat me right if I do something else to make him love me more or to make him happy with me. So, if you are in a relationship with someone and you are holding on to a maybe this person can be different, or maybe this person will do something better, that's where you are with someone's potential. I thought that he would eventually treat me better. I thought he would potentially be the man that he showed me at the beginning. And what really happened was I was rejecting the real him. I was rejecting the truth of what I knew about him. And the reason why was because I wanted to believe the lie that he sold me at the beginning. So in the beginning, there was this love bombing, and there was this, whirlwind romance, and him treating me wonderfully and doing all these nice things for me and doting on me and buying me things. And, I rejected the truth when I saw it, because he showed me the truth. Eventually, he showed me the things that he did in his actions and his words, that he wasn't a good person, that he wasn't nice, that he talked about people behind their back, that he treated me badly. But I rejected that because I was in love with the potential of what I felt like he could be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. This case is also, it's a rampant case, not only with you, but
Mhm.
with most relationship and marriages. I often imagine while, the early part of some people's marriage is full of love, genuine affection, but once they get in home, it's like the love begins to swing down. It's like the whole thing begins to decline and some sort of hatred are coming in from some point. But what I always see in most marriages is that, the beginning part might be very smooth, while once they get in home, I don't know why it's like that, but I think it's mostly very rampant in our community and society. Okay, that about that. Also, a lot of people have suffered from this same condition, dealing with a narcissist, but they couldn't write a book about it. And I was going to ask you, what specifically inspired you to write this book, When Tears Leave Scars?
So initially, when I decided I wanted to write this book, it was because I was so shocked at what I had discovered, because I had
Well,
lived for so long
mm,
unknowing about what this was, unknowing that there are people in the world who are this evil and do this type of thing. I was shocked, and I thought to myself, I thought, this cannot be me and only me. There has to be other people in this world who are going through exactly the same thing. So I thought, you know what?
yes.
I'm going to raise awareness. I'm going to let people know, because, in my marriage, from the outside looking in, was very normal, was very happy, looked, we had a really nice house. We had 3 really well-behaved children. Everything looked really good from the outside, but behind closed doors, I was sad. I was depressed. I was walking on eggshells. I was worried constantly. I was in fear. And I just thought, other people have to know this, because there's people just like me who are out there who are suffering and have no idea. And if I can save somebody 20 years, I would definitely write a book to save somebody the heartache and the stress and the strife that I went through. So that was really why I felt like I needed to do it. I felt called to do that, because the other thing was not only the people who are experiencing the abuse, but the people in their families, like my mother who was isolated from me. There's a
Well,
lot of parents out there whose children are in relationships like this and who are being isolated from them, who are totally different than they always were, who are being manipulated and controlled. And I felt like, I could write it for those people too, because it could bring them some solace that this happens, but that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that people can make an escape from it.
yeah, that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Because I know that there are quite a lot of people that also suffer from this sort of, peer, sort of narcissist people.
Mhm.
And it's very, very good that you're creating awareness of it. That's actually a great job. And I've
Thank
been seeing that book, it's doing well on Amazon, because the last time I checked, I saw over 107 reviews there, but I was like, wow, that's very great. It's really moving forward. And I'm really excited about that.
Thank you.
I also think that, most people are emotionally abused, but couldn't discern whether or not they are.
Mhm.
And I want to ask you, is there any particular sign that shows that someone is emotionally abused? I mean, how would someone know that she is in an emotional abused marriage or relationship?
Yeah, there definitely are signs. And I'll just tell you here, for any of your listeners, if you go to my website, I have a free PDF that if you just type in whentearsleavescars.com, there's a pop-up. And if you click and put your email in, I will send you the signs of what it feels like to be in an emotionally abusive relationship, so that people are aware. But because we're here, I'll explain to you some things, because it's really important to understand that if you're feeling like really confused in your relationship, you're really confused, that's a really big sign of emotional abuse. If you're constantly like, I'm just confused, I don't know what's going on, it sounds strange, but confusion is a huge red flag for emotional abuse. The other thing is, like, if you feel like you're in a fog mentally, if you feel to blame a lot, like if it's one-sided, if you feel like that the person is constantly saying everything's your fault, You're always the one at fault. You need help. You need to go to the doctor. You need to get therapy, and nothing is about them. You know, one thing my ex-husband never did, he never agreed to go to therapy with me. It was always, you need therapy. And I'm like, well, hold on. We're in a marriage together. Shouldn't we go to marriage therapy or marriage counseling together? And he said no, because if you have a problem, you need to fix it. But that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because I thought, well, wait a minute. What are you saying here, that I'm crazy, or that? And yes, he was. He literally was saying that I was crazy. I had something wrong with me. And so those are big red flags when you're thinking about the relationship with your, normal, healthy relationships. They communicate. They don't give silent treatments. And a lot of times you'll see that with a narcissist. They'll give silent treatments to you if they're angry or if they're upset with what you did. If you feel like you're always on eggshells, you're constantly like worried, I'm going to upset him or her, I'm going to hurt someone's feelings, or, if you just can't be you and you just can't, express yourself openly, those are types of things that happen a lot of times in covert narcissistic relationships. Other things for emotional abuse that people don't realize are like intimidation, someone standing over you and threatening you, punching a wall, not necessarily physically harming you, because that's a pretty glaring sign of abuse. But it's the things that don't glare as abusive, like, throwing things past your head, blocking your way, blaming you constantly criticizing you. These are all kinds of things. Anything also that is keeping you from your own autonomy, keeping you from independence. If that has to do with finances, with your money, if that has to do with decisions that you make or how you would like to do something, like I'll just give you an example. I wasn't allowed to do the laundry in a specific area in our house. It had to be where he said it would be. I wasn't allowed to drink coffee. I wasn't allowed to scrape my fork across my teeth when I ate. I wasn't allowed to eat fast. There were things that he just did not permit. And if he caught me doing these things, it would be a lecture. It would be, him criticizing me. So if you're feeling those types of things in a relationship, that's not healthy. And those are really big signs that you need to look into. Could you be in an emotionally abusive relationship, or could you be dealing with a narcissist?
Wow, that's fantastic. I so much love your response to these questions, and the list you've given is very, very amazing. And as you're speaking, I can resonate with some families that I know, and I was sensing that, they probably the husband is narcissist or something related to that. I so much enjoy your response. That's quite very intriguing.
Yeah.
Then another question I'd like to ask you is that, I see that a psychopath is used to describe someone who is callous, unemotional, and morally depraved. And I see that this term is mostly used or associated with men. And I was curious to ask you, aren't there psychopathic women too? I don't know.
Yes, you are. You're absolutely right. This type of disorder does not just only affect one gender. It can affect any gender, any age, any demographic, any nationality. It doesn't matter. It's a lot of times, and it's debated here, but there is evidence that people who have personality disorders are created through their upbringing. Any traumas that they may have experienced as a child, any sort of adversity, things like that have happened to them, or even the opposite. Like if they're a child who was made to believe that they hung the moon and they're the center of the universe and they could do no wrong, and their parents constantly coddle them and rescue them and never let them face adversity. So yes, it absolutely can be female. And things that I have learned through this journey of mine in kind of self-educating myself on this is that there are a lot of narcissistic mothers out there, where mothers do this type of thing to their children. And a lot of times the father will end up being sort of the one who just kind of goes along with the abuse of the child. And, it really isn't one way or the other. It can happen across the board. It's something that I feel like people just need to be aware of and know the signs so that you can see and deal with it. I mean, if for a child growing up in a family like that, more often than not, they're going to end up in a relationship like that too. So it's really important that we let people know what these types of people do, how they operate, and then how that we can deal with that kind of personality.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. I love that. And I love the fact that, you've really expounded on its subject. That's quite, intriguing to me. And another question I would like to ask you is, a bit confidential, but I'd love your answer to it. I want to ask you, how do your children react when they realize that you've divorced their father? And again, what effect do you think that divorce can have on a child, especially a growing child?
Okay, so that's a really good question. And yeah, it's confidential, but I would be happy to share. And I'll just start with the fact that I am the child of divorced parents. My parents divorced when I was 12 or 13 years old, and it didn't affect me negatively. It didn't affect me in a bad way at all. But my parents handled their divorce in a very amicable way. They still communicate to this day. They still come around together at family holidays and my children's birthdays, and they don't have a tumultuous or angry or resentful type of relationship. They get along just fine. They just couldn't be married to each other. So I think it really depends on the divorce situation. So in my case, my children were very upset. And as you read in my book, my oldest daughter blamed me. And she was very upset with me and said, I ruined their lives. Now it's been 4 years and their outlook has changed and her outlook has changed because she has seen the proof and evidence of what her father is, because when they're over there half of the time, he is also treating her very similarly to how he treated me. So now she's able to witness that for herself. And so her mindset has shifted on that since then. But I think that was just a natural reaction for a young child to be really shocked and upset by the news that her life's going to change. Now, she's going to have parents that aren't married anymore. I think each child has a different personality in the world. And if their parents divorce, I think it depends on how the child interacts with their parents. Like, for example, if one parent is constantly dragging the child into drama, like your mom doesn't love you, or your mom doesn't do this, or your mom is the problem, or your dad, he just is a jerk, or your dad, if those kinds of things are happening to a child and they're put in the middle, it's going to have a really profound effect on that child. It's going to probably affect them in a very negative way because they are constantly being drawn into adult business when they really should just be focused on being a child. And for me, I try my very best to make sure that my kids aren't pulled into drama from my side. It happens a lot on the narcissist side. He does that a lot. Ask your mom this, tell your mom that. Your mom doesn't care about you. She doesn't let you go to this. That happens a lot. And I diffuse the situation and I say, well, you know what? I'm not going to listen to that because that's actually between me and your dad. And if your dad wants to talk to me about it, he can talk to me about it. So, I think it's really important, especially if you have children in a situation like this, that you're very careful about how you operate and how you communicate with that child and make sure that you don't drag them into the middle of that. So, my kids are doing well now. They're still dealing with some things, but I'm doing my very best to help them through that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's really fantastic. That's wholesome. And I love that.
Thank you
so much. You asked today's question. I'm really intrigued by them. Yeah, another thing I would like to ask you, from your experience living with a narcissist, how can you describe the certain traits and characteristics that are associated with most narcissists?
So there's actually a, just for your listeners, there is a psychology document that is called the DSM-5, and that document for narcissism outlines the 9 traits of a narcissist. And in order to be diagnosed, like technically diagnosed as a narcissist by a, professional, you would have to meet 5 of those 9 categories. And I would encourage people to look those up because it's important to know what kinds of things you're dealing with. And one of those things is grandiosity or a sense of importance, a feeling of superiority to other people. There's also things like fantasies of like wealth or intelligence, and a lot of times these are delusional type of fantasies that they have where they think they're the smartest, or they think that they're the richest, or they want to be that, and they're preoccupied with those kinds of things. So there's many things on that list, and there are different types of narcissists too. So you can have a covert one like I experienced, or you can have a malignant one who is very like verbally abusive. I mean, where my ex-husband never called me a bad name ever, not one time. Lowered his voice when he talked to me instead of raised it. Whereas the malignant narcissist will do the opposite. They will yell at you, they will scream at you, they may physically abuse you. They do a lot of other things. So I would really encourage people to look up the traits of narcissism. But one of the glaring things is that narcissists really have a sense of superiority and a feeling. A lot of times you'll talk to people and they'll just talk about themselves the whole time. Talk. And as soon as you say something like, "Oh yeah, I ran a marathon one time too. Oh yeah, and back to me." And then they keep talking about themselves. They don't care about what you have to say. They only care about themselves. And that's really the biggest thing about narcissism is they're really selfish. That's that whole narcissist thing where he looks into the lake and, falls in love with himself. And that's where that comes from. Except for it's way deeper than that. It's not just, "Oh, I feel like I'm beautiful," or "I feel like I'm the best." They actually have delusions of grandeur. They really think that they are superior than other people. Now, I do want to make one comment because this is my personal opinion. I think that narcissists in general really don't love themselves. I think they really hate themselves at their deepest core level. So they put on this show, this outer facade, this pretend, like almost like a mask that they're this great person, that they do wonderful things, that they're awesome. But really deep down, that's just a cover for what they don't want other people to see. They don't want other people to see their loathing, their self-depravity. They don't want anybody to see those types of things. So, so just as, a word of caution, not everyone you meet is a narcissist, but everyone has levels of narcissism. Even I do, even you do. Everyone has, because it's a self-protection type of thing. I have to protect myself. But narcissists who have high narcissistic traits, people like this, they hurt other people on purpose for their own needs. And that's the main difference.
Wow, that's quite very intriguing. Mm-hmm. And that particular trait about superiority, it's something that I find quite, predominant about Nick's characteristics, because when I read through the book, I feel that he has a great sense of superiority, and there's a way he talks that is very humorous. There's some words he will cool down your voice, you're screaming, and I'll be like, whenever I read through that line, I will start laughing. I'll be like, this book is somewhat humorous. And then there's a particular time when you wrote about when you guys are having marriage, and he went to the backside to play table games with his friends. And when I read that part, I was like, oh my goodness, who on earth does that? You hang out with your friends, and I don't know, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
When he was at the table playing quarters? Yeah, so that was because I had already, before I went down the aisle, I was already feeling nervous about getting married. And I thought, oh, well, maybe everybody just feels nervous. You're getting ready to get married. Maybe that's normal. And I realize now it wasn't nerves. It wasn't just like normal jitters. It was my gut being like, don't do this. And once I had already walked down the aisle, once I had already said I do, and then we were at the reception and he was downstairs off in the corner with his friends doing his own thing and left me alone to go greet all of the people who had come to our wedding. I was really shocked. I mean, I didn't even know how to process it. I was like, what in the world is happening right now? Like, I didn't even know where my brand new husband was. And he was
Wow.
off with his friends doing, what he wanted to do. And that's really what it boils down to. Is always about what a narcissist wants for themselves. It doesn't
Mm,
matter what other people want. And
wow.
sometimes if they a lot of times they'll have like ulterior motives. So they might say that they want something or act like they want something for someone else, but it's really just for them because maybe it makes them look good or maybe it makes them feel good or whatever it might be. So there's always an ulterior motive that I'm always looking out for.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite very funny and surprising. It's
Right.
quite very surprising. When I read through it, I think it's in page 40. I was like, I wrote it. I underlined it. I was like, wow, can you imagine? Who the
Yeah,
hell does that?
I know. It's really
Yeah,
not
another
okay.
very, very funny, honestly.
Yeah.
Okay, another thing, is there any additional thing that you would love to share with the viewers concerning your book that I probably might not mention in this interview?
I think that one thing that I want to share with people is that because at the beginning of my book, as you know, I really had a lot of fantasies about him dying, because I felt trapped and I felt like I didn't know how to get out, and it would just have been way easier if he died. Like that was literally what was going through my head for a lot of my marriage. And if people feel like that, some people feel like they want to die themselves and, contemplate suicide. So those two things. And then another thing that I noticed, that I've heard through the narcissistic community too, is fantasies of the narcissist cheating on you, like hoping they'll cheat on you so that you can have an excuse to get out, or fantasies of being with another person to rescue you. So if you're having feelings like that, there's a reason. There's a reason why. So, as my book shows, my thing was I wish he died. And I mentioned it multiple times and I wanted him to die. And when you read the ending of the book, which I won't give away, that kind of shifts. But knowing and understanding that those kinds of thoughts and feelings are normal for people who are feeling like prisoners in their relationship, those are normal, but those are also big indicators that there's something deeper going on in the relationship. So that's something I would make sure that everybody knows.
Wow, that's quite intriguing. Another thing I would like to ask you, what sort of advice do you have for people who suffer from emotional abuse or who are married and being tortured by a narcissistic husband?
So the one thing that I feel is really, really important is planning, because people who are in relationships with someone like this, they feel stuck. They feel paralyzed. Like there's no way they're ever going to get out. That's why they go through these fantasies of, like I did, hoping that he would just die because it would be an easy way out, right? So if you're really distraught and you really want something to change, the biggest piece of advice I could give to people is to plan. And basically what I mean by that is start, you can do this like on your phone in a locked note. I wouldn't write it like on paper because then the narcissist might see it. But you could even email it to yourself to like a private email address and then delete the sent item out of your email. But I would start with things that you need to do in order to get out. And some of those things would be to research a really good attorney, research really good support groups and people that you can talk to, find out where your local domestic violence shelters are in case you need to escape quickly and get out if your life is in danger or your children's lives are in danger. I would also plan finances, like how are you going to start saving up money for these things? Because in a lot of cases, narcissists are very financially abusive. They control what you spend. They control where you spend. They control what you do and don't do, where you go, if you even have a credit card or access to your bank accounts. So you would have to start planning those types of things. You would need to plan a place to live. You would also need to figure out, where where you're going to take your children. Like in my case, I picked my children up from school and then I took them to my mom's house because I was afraid to go back to the house. Everything that you do is, I feel like there are some people who have to jump ship really quickly. They have to get out because they're scared of the person harming them or their children. And in that case, I would say, don't worry about your plan at that point. If you really feel like your life is in danger, you need to get to a shelter or call 911 or call, for help. But if you are like me and you can kind of under the cover radar, under the cover of darkness, kind of sort of plan your escape. I mean, it took me a couple of months to plan my escape. But when I did, I felt way more comfortable. I felt way more prepared. I had a lawyer lined up. I had a housing place lined up. Everything kind of was ready to go. So planning is super important for this, if you can make that happen, because it will set you up for the best success. And here's the other really, kind of scary statistic, especially for male, female. If you leave an abuser, the first 7 days after you leave are the absolute most dangerous time. And they have studies about this because there have been women who have, told their husbands that they're leaving them, and then within 7 days end up being attacked or killed. So so those first 7 days are really, really vital to protecting yourself. And that's why planning is so important, because you have a place lined up, you've done what you need to do not to get sucked back in by this person, and you have some safety measures already in place, then you will set yourself up for the best success for getting out and staying out. So planning is key, and it's so very important. Also, that same PDF that I mentioned before, there's also a page on there that that helps with planning and gives you 10 steps that you can do to exit safely to make sure that you set yourself up for success.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that. I love the response to that.
Thanks.
Yeah, another thing I would like to ask you, sorry for this, but I feel that it would be fine if I mention it. Sure. In your book, there's a particular person that takes the character of Johnny. And my own perception, Johnny works like someone who helps you to understand who a psychopath is. Yes. And you wrote the book that you met him online, and you guys have been communicating, and you've loved his communication, and it has been so impactful, and it even helped you to understand who a psychopath is. Right. I don't know, could you tell us a bit about Johnny, how you met him, how his communication has been so impactful?
Yes, Johnny.
And I don't communicate today.
Absolutely. Johnny literally saved my life. I mean, that's how I look at it. Because when you're isolated from a narcissist, you don't have your own family, you don't have a lot of friends, and that was the case for me. And my husband at the time did not like me using social media. And part of that reason was because I was having a connection with the outside world. He didn't even like me to go to volunteer. I wanted to go volunteer, and he said, no, you don't need to volunteer. You need to stay home. You have things at home that you need to worry about, not other people. So I couldn't even go help out in my community because he refused to let me do that. So even just having a connection to people in social media, and I had a lot of friends on social media and people who I messaged a lot. And I remember when I told a lot of those same, a lot of friends, hey, I got to get off social media. I need to focus on my marriage. This is taking up too much time. And I told everyone the same message. And when I told Johnny, he thought, okay, this is my opportunity to tell her what is happening here. And if he had not done that, I truly believe I would still be married to that person. I would still be being abused, because even my own dad had told me to work on my marriage, go back and try to fix it. And all Johnny did, all he had to do was tell me to look it up. Tell me, just go research this, just go see what you find out. And that's what I did. And when I saw that information, I was absolutely floored. I was sick to my stomach. I was angry. I was like, I can't believe that this has been happening to me for this long on purpose by the person that's supposed to love me the most. And I am eternally grateful to Johnny for that, because I truly, truly believe I would be stuck in that position. And so, also part of the reason that I do what I do is to be that Johnny for other people, because without that awareness, without people knowing, how do people even, come to the conclusion that they could be in an emotionally abusive relationship with someone with a personality disorder if you only know what you know? So that's part of why I do what I do, is to pay it forward for what Johnny did for me, because he didn't have to do that. He literally just was like, I've seen these kind of people in my life. I know about this thing. I think you might want to look into it. So I still communicate with him. We're still friends. And, he gets to witness my my authorship and my social media accounts and all of that. So yeah, he's a really great friend, and I'm eternally grateful for him.
That's very fantastic, and I'm so excited about that. It's more like an angel sent to you.
It is, yeah.
It's very impressive. That's very great.
Thank you.
Conversation with Allison K. Dagney, the author of When Tears Leave Scars, a true story of triumph over emotional abuse. And Allison K. Dagney has just shared with us some of her experience that she passed through, which lead her to writing When Tears Leave Scars. When Tears Leave Scars is currently available on Amazon for some few dollars. If you'd like to get a copy, I left a link in the description part of this interview for you to get a copy. It's really a pleasure that we've had, Allison on the show. Thank you very much, Allison, for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Peter. It's been such a wonderful chat with you, and I am looking forward to reading your book as well, because I've got about halfway through the Kismet or Impediment, and it's absolutely wonderful. So I just wanted to plug that too, because it's really, really good. So appreciate the opportunity to share my story and to raise awareness for emotional abuse. It's such a horrible thing that a lot of people are experiencing, and having a platform like this to expose it and help others is just wonderful. So thank you so much.